Welcome to another episode on my channel Firm Learning. My name is Heinrich, and as you know, on my channel I want to help you to become successful in the first years of your career. Here today I'm once again back at my University of Munich. This is the place where I studied business and philosophy during my undergrad. And the topic of today's video is private university versus public university. Private school versus public school. And the question is, which one is better? Is private university really worth the money? Is it worth the investment of your time, of your effort? And I want to reflect on this exactly here at my old university. Because indeed, while I did my bachelor in Munich, in parallel to that, I completed a semester abroad at Bocconi University in Milan, which is a private business school, and then later continued to do a master in finance and accounting at the London School of Economics in London. So indeed the question is, which one is better? This is what we're going to talk about today. So before we jump into the details of the pros and cons of public versus private universities, I first want to specify a bit more what exactly I mean by this public university. Because I know that here there are significant differences, also country by country, especially also on the wider regions. So for instance, I know that for sure if in a US context you talk about a public university, the universities that there you would have in your mind are probably very different than what you would talk about in, for instance, a German or broader European context. Because indeed here in Germany, public universities like the University of Munich are quite good indeed. And indeed, this is, I trust, similar in many other European countries as well. So in the context of this video, I will rather talk about this more European type of system, where while a public university might not necessarily have the reputation of some of the very best private ones, they're still considered to be good and to some extent also competitive, and some of them even target universities. But we're going to talk about this concept a bit more in a couple of minutes. I will now talk about 4 aspects where private universities potentially are a bit different than public universities. And the first one is the richness of experience. And this is now especially relevant when you compare private business schools to public big universities like, for instance, the University of Munich. And for me, one of the key reasons why I decided to start my undergraduate studies here in Munich compared to, for instance, also some German private business schools that exist for sure as well, was really the opportunity to study different types of subjects, different types of degree programs. And personally, I did indeed study business and philosophy, but even if you're not willing to complete 2 full degrees, if you just enrolled in a business program and then just take individual lectures, individual classes on some other topics as well, for me this was one of the key parts of the experience of studying in an undergraduate degree. And this is of course often not really possible in a private business school. Maybe if you compare this to the London School of Economics and Political Sciences, which is the full name of the school, there yes, there were some other opportunities. But for instance, at my MBA, I only had the opportunity to take business classes. And while these were for sure high quality and very interesting and relevant business classes, there I missed this opportunity to go beyond my core subject. Same thing was true at the University Bocconi, which is indeed an Italian business school as well. And this then also translates just to the size and magnitude of university. So here in Munich, 50,000 students are studying. This comes with lots of extracurricular activities, organizations, other opportunities that you could be part of in parallel to studying in university. And while things like that exist as well in these private schools, these are often much smaller, and by that also just the sheer amount and opportunities of organizations, activities, societies that you can be part of is limited. This is at least what I strongly felt. Next point I want to talk about is the quality of the teaching, the quality of the education that is being delivered to you. And here I'd assume that many people would argue that yes, the private universities have an advantage. And of course, this might also be the case, especially because due to the better funding of the private universities, there you will often have smaller group sizes. Instead of sitting in a class with 800, 900 other students, as I often experience it here at the University of Munich, in universities like the LSE where I studied, or Bocconi in Milan, or then later of course also the MBA, the class sizes were significantly smaller, contributing to a better learning environment, I'd say. And here now, right now, I'm standing in front of the business faculty where I studied here in Munich. And indeed, it was the case that while the classes were often larger, especially then later in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth semester of university, you had courses, you had seminars where then the group sizes were smaller as well. So I wouldn't say it's this black and white when you compare these two types of universities, though indeed on average I would say it is correct that these interactions are richer, are in smaller groups in the private universities. But here I also want to say that in general the quality of the lectures, the quality of the teachings, this had not a lower quality in Munich. Here I also had some excellent lectures, excellent classes delivered by excellent professors. So this, I'd say, was rather similar, though again, quality of the groups, smaller group sizes. This is really what you get as a pro in this private context. The next thing I want to talk about are student fees. And indeed, student fees are often one of the first things that come to your mind when you talk about these private universities. And indeed, this is of course true. So when I studied here at the University of Munich, I almost paid no student fees at all. Essentially, studying at a public university in Germany is for free. So this is of course different to the private universities. When I completed my master in accounting and finance in London, I paid over £20,000, British pound, in student fees. And I recently checked again the webpage. Today it costs even over £30,000. This is of course a crazy amount and can be very detrimental for other people trying to study in this way. So how can you do this? What can you do to finance this? And indeed, there are lots of opportunities for scholarships. I would encourage you really to check out scholarships that might be available to you. I was privileged enough to pay at least a significant portion of the total student fees with scholarship programs. Of course, the exact programs that are available to you depend on your country, on the university, on your region. So do this research. Though my opinion also is, if you really want to do it, if you have a dream university where you want to study, there are ways to make it work. I would very likely not study at such a university only due to the student fees. There are often ways to finance it. And indeed, after you study at such a university, especially if you study something in the area of business, you will often have opportunities to then also remake that money rather quickly after graduating, at least if you then also have the goal to move into one of these high-paced careers that then provide you with the salaries that would also enable you to pay back the student loans that you might potentially take to finance this. The other question that of course people have in mind when talking about public versus private university is the whole discussion of target schools, is the whole discussion of whether or not it really helps your career to study at these private schools, potentially because they are considered a target school, which is a school that is a preferred university for employers to hire from. And indeed, now reflecting on my experience here, I think the first insight is that you always need to distinguish local target schools from global target schools. Because the University of Munich, even though it is a public university, could be considered a target school in Germany. Right? So this university has the reputation in Germany that it is one of the leading business schools. And indeed, all these employers that we so frequently talk about on this channel, like the MBB consulting firms, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, and so on, they do like to hire people from the University of Munich. And indeed, I was hired for an internship at McKinsey when I was studying in the middle of my bachelor here. Though the truth is also, probably if you go beyond Germany, if you go beyond the country, very few people will really know the University of Munich. So it is a local target school. And now you can compare this to a school like the London School of Economics in the UK, in England. This is of course a university which is probably well known also far outside of the UK. Many people in many other countries will know this university. So this is a university that might be considered an international target school. And if you want this type of reputation, if you want to study at a university with a reputation that exceeds the boundaries of your region, of your country, it might be worthwhile to go there as well. And yes, of course, in terms of target schools, in terms of later potentially also applying to an MBA or to other larger global firms, this might be helpful, though I would argue most of your career ambitions can very much be fulfilled with studying at a public university, which is a local target school as well. So I hope that these different considerations, these different dimensions that I looked at are helpful to you if you are in the position to now ask yourself whether you'd like to study at a public or private university. But what is my personal conclusion? What is my reflection on this question? And personally, I would not have wanted to miss my time in Munich. It was for me an extremely remarkable and formative time. Indeed, just also from the cost perspective, given that the undergraduate degree usually goes 3 to 4 years. Now the need of having to pay student fees for all this time, this is of course insane, and it's arguably whether you will recoup this financial burden then later in your job. Though what I think could be the sweet spot is to indeed do the undergraduate degree at a public university, benefit from the lower cost, from this very remarkable experience that you get there, and then get for the private university the master degree, because the master often is only 1 to 2 years, so the cost will be lower. There you can then get also all these benefits without incurring all the cost. This is in the end how I did it, and reflecting on this, it did make a lot of sense for my personal career, and also looking back at some of my peers, many people followed a similar route and it worked out quite well for them as far as I can tell. So now I'd love to hear from you. What are your experiences? Did you study at a public or private university? If you studied at a private university, what are your reflections? Was it really worth your money? I'd love to hear from you. And indeed, as you know, every comment that you leave below the video also helps me with the algorithm. And indeed, if you took any value out of this video at all, please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm, and also subscribe to my channel to stay up to date on all my content. I release new videos every single Saturday, and if you want to see even more from me, also follow me on my Instagram. My handle is Firm Learning. I now want to say thanks to all the members of the channel. You're really making a great contribution to the cause of this channel. Thank you so much. And to all the others of you, good weekend to you. Hope you are having great days. See you back next Saturday. This is Heinrich from Firm Learning. Bye bye.